The gavel never struck. It hovered in midair the moment my 8-year-old daughter, Mila, stepped forward, clutching her cracked tablet like it was an explosive secret she could barely keep. Your Honor, her voice trembled, but it cut through the courtroom with frightening clarity. I have something you need to see. Something my mommy doesn't know. The judge froze. My husband's arrogant smirk collapsed. And my heart, already bruised from months of fear, nearly stopped. Whatever she was about to show wasn't just a video. It was the truth that would set everything on fire. Welcome back, everyone. If you enjoy emotional, cinematic true-life storytelling, feel free to gently tap like or subscribe so you'll never miss a story. Now let's go back to where everything began. Before the courtroom erupted and my life split in two, my mornings were a ritual of quiet endurance. At 5:45 a.m., I slipped out of bed carefully, as if the wrong sound could trigger another lecture from my husband, Dorian Caldwell. The Atlanta townhouse was still dark when I tied my curls back and headed to the kitchen.
Eggs.
Turkey bacon.
Coffee.
Always the same order. The skillet hissed, the coffee machine puffed, and I moved deliberately, because in Dorian's world, every tiny mistake was proof I wasn't enough. At 6 on the dot, he appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Pressed blazer. Perfect posture. Eyes like cold glass. Coffee, he said, not a greeting, not a glance. A command. I slid the mug toward him. He took a sip and exhaled sharply. Burnt. Again. I swallowed the sting. Sorry, I'll make another. Don't bother. Before I could blink away the shame, salvation arrived in the form of little footsteps. Morning, Mommy.
Morning, Daddy.
Mila ran over in her mismatched pajamas, hugging me first, her warmth easing the ache in my chest. Morning, Peanut, I whispered. She hugged Dorian next, gently, cautiously, and he finally smiled for someone. Breakfast ended quickly. Dorian stood, grabbed his keys. Mila's riding with me today, he announced. I hesitated. Oh, okay. I'll cancel with her teacher. He didn't respond. He just left with our daughter and all the attention, and the house fell silent again, the kind of silence that reminded me who held all the power here. That was my life. Routine. Compliance. Quiet suffering masked as stability. That afternoon, as I prepped dinner, a loud knock jolted me. A courier handed me a thick navy envelope. For Serena Caldwell. Need a signature. My pulse quickened. Dorian handled all mail like this. I signed, closed the door, and when I sat on the couch and opened the envelope, my life cracked open. Petition for dissolution of marriage, filed by Dorian Caldwell. My breath vanished. He wanted a divorce. Not a conversation. Not a warning. A full-scale legal attack. I scanned the pages, and my hands began to shake violently. Full custody of Mila. All assets to the husband. Claims of emotional instability by the wife. My vision blurred. My throat closed. He wasn't leaving me. He was building a case to erase me. The petition was not the betrayal. It was only the first move in a planned destruction. Terrified, I opened our joint banking app. Balance, $0. 6 months of quiet withdrawals, tens of thousands gone. Every transfer authorized under Dorian's login. He drained us strategically. Methodically. Cruelly. This wasn't abandonment, it was entrapment. I sprinted upstairs, flung open my jewelry box. Empty. Wedding ring?
Gone.
Grandma's gold earrings?
Gone.
All the pieces I treasured?
Gone.
Not misplaced. Removed. He wasn't preparing to leave. He was stripping me of any way to fight. That evening, when Dorian returned with Mila, I immediately smelled it. Jasmine. Warm vanilla. Not my scent. He breezed past me, loosening his tie with a satisfied smirk. Don't stay up, he said. Big day tomorrow. He didn't explain.
He didn't need to.
The mistress existed, and she wasn't just a side affair. That night, while braiding Mila's hair, she asked, Mommy, are you confused a lot? My heart dropped. Baby, what do you mean? Daddy said you get mixed up, and if I stay with him later, you can rest more. I felt something inside me crack. He wasn't just poisoning the judge. He was poisoning my daughter. He was shaping a story, and Mila was becoming part of it. When I tucked Mila in, I felt a hard object under her pillow. Her old tablet.
Cracked. Slow.
Barely working. Mila, why are you hiding this? Her eyes widened with fear. Please don't take it, Mommy. Please. Her panic wasn't about a toy. It was about a secret. I didn't know it yet, but that hidden tablet held the one truth that could save us both. 2 days later, the night before the divorce hearing, I gathered the little courage I had left and marched to the guest room, pounding on the door. Dorian, open up. Who is she? The door cracked open, just a sliver, revealing a silhouette behind him. A woman stepped forward.
Tall.
Beautiful.
Poised.
Her blazer crisp, her eyes sharp with judgment before she even spoke. This is Dr. Elise Monroe, Dorian said, too casually. The psychologist who evaluated you. My stomach twisted. Evaluated me? I've never met you. Elise straightened her coat. Your emotional volatility has been concerning. My recommendation is that Mila remains with her father. Volatility?
Lies.
Fabricated. Weaponized. The worst part wasn't the lie. It was how easily the system accepted it. I staggered back. You've never even spoken to me. This is ridiculous. Dorian leaned close enough that I smelled the jasmine again. People don't need to hear you speak, he whispered, to believe the story I've already written about you. A chill ran down my spine. Elise folded her arms. Dorian smiled like a man placing the final piece of a trap. In that moment, I understood. Tomorrow wasn't going to be a hearing. It was going to be my execution. But what none of us knew, not Dorian, not Elise, not even the judge, was that Mila had already seen far more than anyone realized. And the cracked tablet she hid under her pillow held the evidence that was about to burn their entire scheme to the ground. The morning of the hearing, Atlanta was quiet, unnervingly quiet, the kind of stillness that seemed staged, as if the entire city were bracing for something I couldn't yet see. I walked beside Marcus Hale, my attorney, whose steady presence helped keep my breath from unraveling. Remember, he murmured as we approached the courthouse doors, their whole plan is to shake you. Expect it. Breathe through it. I'll try, I whispered, though the air seemed to thin every time I thought about facing Dorian again. I hadn't slept. Mila had curled into me during the night, her little hand gripping my shirt even while dreaming. But even her warmth couldn't quiet the dread twisting through my chest. Inside the courtroom, everything felt choreographed. Dorian sat sharply dressed, posture straight, expression appropriately somber. His lawyer, Richard Vaughn, radiated confidence, the kind that told me he already considered this case over. And behind them sat Dr. Elise Monroe, legs crossed neatly, her face composed and unreadable. She tapped her pen once against her notebook, a soft click, but sharp enough to slice through the air. Her message was clear. She wasn't here to tell the truth. She was here to witness the final act of a play they scripted together. When the judge entered and we all rose, the room shifted. Vaughn wasted no time. Your Honor, he began, with a smoothness that felt rehearsed. My client is a caring, responsible father forced into an impossible situation due to Mrs. Caldwell's increasing emotional volatility. We have extensive documentation. He clicked a remote. Photos filled the courtroom screen. My kitchen, messy from a long day. Toys scattered across the floor. Laundry piled. And the photo that nearly made me collapse, me crying on the edge of our bed, hair tangled, face blotched, shoulders shaking. That moment had been private, a moment where I thought the world was finally allowed to see the pain I hid. That photo was taken without my consent, I whispered, but the judge lifted a hand to quiet me gently. Elise watched me with clinical interest, the corner of her mouth barely shifting. She tapped her pen again once, a small, punctuating sound, almost approving. And now, Vaughn said with theatrical pride, our expert witness. Elise stood. Her heels clicked across the floor in precise rhythms, like the ticking of a clock counting down to my undoing. She introduced herself, voice calm, polished, assured. For 3 months, I conducted observational evaluations of Mrs. Caldwell and her interactions with her daughter. My blood chilled. She had never spoken to me, never interviewed me, never asked a single question. Yet she continued as though reciting a carefully crafted report. I witnessed erratic emotional responses, moments of distress displayed by the child, and behaviors suggesting the mother's struggles to maintain consistency in the home. Marcus stiffened beside me. Elise didn't stop. In my professional opinion, she concluded smoothly, custody should be awarded solely to Mr. Caldwell. Dorian lowered his head, wiping his eyes as though this deeply pained him. The gallery reacted exactly how he hoped they would. Quiet sympathy, shifting glances, murmurs of concern. Marcus rose to cross-examine, his tone controlled. Dr. Monroe, you never interviewed my client directly. Correct. That is correct. And your entire evaluation is based on watching her from a distance. Distance removes emotional influence, she replied calmly. It often reveals the most honest behavior. He pressed her on specifics, dates, times, descriptions. Some of her answers wavered subtly, contradictions brushing the surface. The judge paused his note-taking for a brief moment, eyebrow barely lifting, a flicker of something in his expression that suggested Marcus had hit a thread. But it wasn't enough to unravel her. Elise stayed composed, every lie wrapped in professional jargon. When Marcus finally sat down, he whispered tightly, she knows how to lie and make it sound like science. My name was called. Every step toward the stand felt heavier than the last. My hands were cold, my pulse unsteady. But I swore I wouldn't let them steal my voice the way they'd stolen everything else. Marcus began gently. Mrs. Caldwell, can you describe your relationship with your daughter? I'm her everything, I said softly. I cook for her, take her to school, help her with homework, read to her. She's the center of my world. He moved toward the projected photo of my messy kitchen. That day looks difficult. What was happening? I was sick, I explained. I had a fever. I could barely move. And Dorian refused to help. He took that photo when I was vulnerable. My eyes flicked to Mila in the gallery, her legs swinging nervously, her face small and uncertain. If she believed these lies, if she doubted me, they wouldn't just take her from my home, they would take her from my heart. And the financial claims? Marcus asked. I didn't make those purchases, I said. Yes, the card was in my name, but he controlled it. I never. Vaughn rose like a shark scenting blood. Let's get to the point, he said, voice smooth and cold. In your story, Mrs. Caldwell, you're always the wounded one, never the one responsible. Convenient, isn't it? That's not true, I said, gripping the edge of the stand. He placed the photo of me crying directly in front of me. This is you.
Correct.
Yes. Is this what stability looks like? I was hurting, I said. Anyone would hurt. And did your daughter see like this? He pressed, leaning in. Did she wonder why her mother couldn't hold herself together? A tremor moved through me. Had Mila seen me? Had they twisted it into something poisonous? My daughter has always been safe with me. But has she always been comfortable with you? Vaughn asked sharply. Or has she spent years adapting to your instability? His words were scalpels, small, precise, designed to cut deep. No further questions, he said, already turning away, certain he'd carved in enough doubt. I walked back to my seat feeling hollow. Marcus whispered, "You didn't break. That's what matters." But it didn't feel like enough. I could sense the shift in the room, sympathy sliding away inch by inch. During recess, I stepped into the hallway to breathe, or at least try. Dorian followed. He leaned against the wall beside me, posture relaxed, voice quiet. "Really impressive performance today," he murmured. I flinched. "Why are you doing this? You know I'm not unstable." He chuckled softly, not with humor, but with cruelty. "Serena, people don't care about truth. They care about the story." His voice lowered, each word sharpened. "And I wrote the one where you fail." I stared at him, unable to speak. "And soon," he added, brushing past me, "Mila will see what I've always known. You are just the temporary parent." Something inside me buckled. Not a crack, but a folding inward, a collapse too quiet for anyone to see. By the time the hearing ended, exhaustion had carved its way into every part of me. That night at home, Mila crawled into my lap. "Mommy," she whispered, "did I make you stressed today?" Daddy said, "Sometimes I make things harder." The breath left my body. "Oh, baby," I whispered, pulling her close, "you make my world better. Always." She drifted to sleep in my arms, trusting me completely. And that trust, that fragile, precious trust, was what terrified me most. Later, when I tucked her in, something hard pressed under her pillow. Her cracked tablet. The one thing she hid from everyone. The one thing she guarded like a secret too big for a child to carry. I lifted it gently. Tomorrow was the verdict. The lies against me felt insurmountable. But this tablet, something in my gut whispered, steady and certain. This wasn't just a device. It was evidence. And its truth would drown out every lie they built against me. The courthouse felt different the next morning. Not tense like yesterday. Not hostile. Just final. The air carried the stillness of a room where the decision had already been made. Where my fate felt signed, sealed, and waiting to be spoken aloud. Marcus walked beside me, slower than usual. He didn't speak at first, not until we reached the hallway outside the courtroom. "Serena," he said quietly, pulling me aside, "I need you calm today. No matter what happens inside that room." What do you think is going to happen?" He didn't answer right away. That hesitation was enough to hollow out my ribs. "We're not in a strong position," he admitted finally. "But whatever happens, remember, this isn't the end. We can appeal. We can revisit custody. Today doesn't define everything." But the look in his eyes told me he feared it might define far too much. The bailiff opened the door. "Both parties, please step inside." And just like that, I walked toward the place where my entire world would tilt. The gallery was much fuller today. Families pressed close, spectators whispering, faces turned toward us with muted curiosity. Elise sat directly behind Dorian now, no longer pretending distance. Her posture was perfect, controlled, impossibly still. She tapped her pen once, a small, sharp sound. Dorian looked back at her, then turned to me and mouthed a single word. "Finished." My stomach flipped. My breath stuttered. But before I could respond, the judge entered, and everyone rose. He adjusted his glasses, shuffled the papers before him, and cleared his throat. "We reconvene today to issue temporary custody arrangements pending further evidence." Temporary. But temporary can destroy a family. Based on the expert evaluation presented and the supporting documentation. Vaughn straightened proudly. Dorian's lips curled. "The court finds sufficient cause to grant temporary full custody of minor child, Mila Caldwell, to her father, Mr. Dorian Caldwell." Sound left the room. I wasn't just losing a case. I was watching my daughter slip out of my life in real time. My fingers dug into the table. The world blurred. My chest caved. The judge continued, his voice a steady drone moving somewhere above my panic. Mrs. Caldwell will be granted supervised visitation twice a week pending additional psychological review. Supervised. Like I was a danger. Like they had succeeded in turning motherhood into suspicion. I forced myself to breathe. This is wrong, I whispered. This is. Marcus squeezed my arm gently. Not now. Breathe. The judge looked toward Dorian. Mr. Caldwell, do you have any objections to the visitation schedule as proposed?
Dorian rose slowly, confidently.
Yes, Your Honor, he said. I do. Even Vaughn glanced at him, startled by how casually he escalated. Dorian put one hand over his chest, a theatrical show of concern. I believe Serena's instability is worsening. For Mila's safety, I request that all visitation be postponed until further psychological evaluations are completed. The gallery gasped. My pulse went wild. I felt the room tilt under my feet. The judge frowned. Mr. Caldwell, that is a severe restriction. What evidence do you have of immediate danger? Dorian smirked. Elise has recordings from the past few weeks. Interactions showing Serena's inability to remain composed around our daughter. Elise stiffened, a tiny shift, irritation flashing across her face. He had gone too far too fast. He slipped. The judge's eyebrows lifted. Recordings? These were not provided. We can submit them now, Dorian said eagerly. He reached into his briefcase. And I braced myself for Dorian's next blow, and then a small voice cut through the courtroom like a pin through glass. Your Honor? Every head turned. Mila stood just outside the gallery row, her chin trembling, her hands clasped behind her back. The judge blinked. Young lady, you're not required to speak. I know. Her voice quivered, but she didn't back down. But I have something important. Something you need to see before you listen to my dad. My breath caught. My heart lurched. Dorian's face snapped toward her.
Mila, sit down. Now.
She didn't move. Instead, she took a tiny step forward. I need to tell the truth. A ripple moved through the gallery. The judge softened his tone. Come here, child. Mila walked toward the bench, clutching her cracked tablet to her chest. The same one she hid under her pillow. The same one she protected like a secret too heavy for someone her size. The bailiff retrieved it and placed it gently before the judge. And what am I looking at? He asked. Mila swallowed hard. My tablet glitches sometimes, and it records things. I didn't know at first. But then I found videos Daddy didn't know it made. Dorian's face drained. Vaughn's smirk vanished. Elise's hand froze midair. The judge connected the tablet to the courtroom display. The lights dimmed. The screen flickered. A shaky video loaded. And then, Dorian's voice. Sharp. Full. Undeniable. Mila, stop crying. Stop right now. My stomach twisted. On the video, Mila's voice trembled. I don't want to say it.
You will say it, Dorian snapped.
You will tell Dr. Elise exactly what I told you. If you don't, Mommy won't get better. Do you hear me? A gasp rushed through the room. I slapped a hand over my mouth as tears flooded my eyes. He forced her to lie. He forced her to turn against me. On the screen, Mila sobbed harder. I don't want Mommy to go away. Then do what I told you. Dorian barked. Say, she scares you sometimes. Say she yells. Say she gets confused. The judge's jaw tightened. The video continued. If you don't do it right, Dorian hissed, Mommy will be taken away. And it'll be your fault. Now say it. Another collective gasp. A whisper of disgust. Someone murmured, Oh my God. Next to Dorian, Elise's pen slipped from her fingers and clattered onto the floor, the first crack in her perfect composure. The audio stopped. Silence crushed the room. The judge leaned forward, stunned. Mrs. Caldwell, did you know about this? I shook my head, unable to speak.
No, I swear.
I had no idea. He turned to Mila. Did anyone tell you to bring this? No, she whispered. I just wanted you to know the truth. He nodded slowly, deeply. Thank you, child. That was brave. Then he turned toward Dorian. Mr. Caldwell, stand. Dorian rose, visibly shaken now, his confidence drained. Your Honor, I can explain. No, the judge said sharply. You can't. The judge's voice hardened into something cold and immovable. Effective immediately, temporary full custody is granted to Mrs. Serena Caldwell. My breath broke out of me in a sob. The judge continued. All visitation for Mr. Caldwell is suspended, pending investigation into this evidence. Additionally, Dr. Monroe's testimony is hereby stricken from the record until her involvement is reviewed. Elise blanched. Vaughn went pale. And Dorian. He looked like the floor had vanished under his feet. You can't do this, he snarled. I can, the judge said. And given what I just witnessed, it's my duty to. And in that moment, the entire story he built finally collapsed around him. Chaos rippled through the courtroom the moment the gavel struck. Voices rose. People stood. Chairs scraped. The air felt charged, frantic, like the room itself was recoiling from everything that had just been exposed. Dorian didn't move at first. He stood there, a statue of disbelief, jaw tensed, eyes wide, the reality of his unraveling sinking in piece by piece. His confidence drained so fast I could almost see it peel away from his face. The bailiff approached, one hand hovering near his holster. Sir, I'm going to need you to take your seat. Something flickered across Dorian's expression, anger, denial, and for the first time, fear. His body lowered stiffly into the chair. Elise, on the other hand, was frozen in place. Her pen lay on the floor where it had fallen, and she stared straight ahead, face drained of color, her perfect composure cracked open. In the gallery, someone whispered, He threatened that little girl. Another, I knew something was wrong. The judge dismissed everyone with a final, heavy strike of the gavel, and the courtroom dissolved into a storm of motion. Marcus led me to Mila. My daughter barreled into my arms, small, trembling, clinging like she was afraid I might disappear if she let go. You are so brave, I whispered into her hair, holding her as tightly as she held me. I was scared, she mumbled, voice muffled against my shoulder. But I didn't want Daddy to lie anymore. My chest tightened painfully. You did the right thing. You told the truth. Across the room, 2 officers approached Dorian. His face twisted, outrage flooding back in. You can't escort me anywhere, he snapped. She's lying. This is nonsense. This isn't an arrest, one officer said calmly. It's questioning. There's evidence suggesting coercion and possible endangerment. I didn't endanger anyone, he barked, but his voice cracked at the edges. He looked at me then, rage swirling, unsteady, desperate, and something inside him fractured. For the first time, Dorian looked afraid of losing control. As the gallery thinned, Elise attempted to slip away quickly, gathering her things hurriedly. Marcus stepped into her path. Dr. Monroe, he said evenly, I imagine the court will want to know why your evaluation ignored protocol. Her breath hitched. Just slightly. I didn't know he coerced her, she whispered. I never would have. You never would have? Marcus repeated. You didn't even meet my client. You built your report off a single man's word. She looked away, her face small, ashamed, unraveled. I trusted him, she whispered. I thought I was helping. That, Marcus said coldly, is going to be a problem. Elise walked out with one hand trembling around her bag strap, her precise stride broken, the click of her heels uneven. I stayed still, holding Mila, letting the magnitude of the moment settle into my bones. Relief pulsed through me, relief so intense it almost hurt, but so did something else. A nagging instinct that this wasn't over. That Dorian's collapse was only the first layer of something bigger. Marcus gave my arm a gentle squeeze. You're going to get through this, he said. But there's more coming. Someone from the investigative team will contact you. A detective. A detective? My breath stuttered. He nodded. Given the evidence and the financial claims, this is beyond family court now. It's crossing into criminal territory. A chill ran down my spine. What does that mean for us? It means you and your daughter are safer than you were this morning.
He paused.
But it also means someone else is going to want answers. Outside, the courthouse steps were swarmed with reporters. Cameras flashed. Voices shouted questions I didn't have the strength to answer. Mrs. Caldwell, how do you feel? Were you aware of the recordings? Is your husband dangerous? Security pushed the crowd back while Marcus shielded us with his arm. Mila held onto me tightly, her little fingers digging into my coat. We reached his car. Before closing the door, Marcus leaned in. Go home, he said gently. Rest. Keep the tablet safe. And expect a call. I nodded, and he shut the door. As we drove away, Mila's voice came softly from the back seat. Mommy, what's going to happen now? I reached back and touched her hand. We're together, I said. We're safe. That's what matters right now. But even as I said it, a knot formed somewhere deep inside me. Dorian hadn't just tried to win custody. He had tried to destroy me. People like that don't stop because a judge tells them to. At home, the first thing Mila did was set the tablet gently on the counter. Should I hide it again? She asked nervously. No, I whispered, brushing her hair back. Not this time. Not anymore. She nodded, and I carried her upstairs for a nap. Exhaustion had swallowed her whole. When I came back down, I stared at the cracked tablet. I held it in my hands, feeling its weight. This little glitchy device had turned the entire case upside down. But something Marcus said lingered in my mind. There will be more coming. My stomach tightened. Had the tablet caught more? Something I hadn't yet seen? Before I could tap the screen, a knock sounded at the door. 3 quick knocks. Firm. Not uncertain. My breath caught. I looked through the peephole. A man stood outside. Mid-40s. Dark coat. Badge clipped to his belt. He waited with the stillness of someone used to difficult conversations. I opened the door an inch. Mrs. Caldwell, he asked. I'm Detective Aaron Weaver. The court forwarded evidence this morning. May I come in? There was a kindness in his voice beneath the professionalism. A faint crease formed between his brows, concern, or something close to it. I stepped aside.
Yes.
Come in. Detective Weaver walked to the kitchen, eyes landing immediately on the tablet. He picked it up with careful hands. This is the recording device in question? Yes. He tapped through files, and something in his expression changed, tightened. Mrs. Caldwell, this device didn't just capture the coercion. There are several recordings here. Different dates. Different rooms. Some appear to include you. My heart stopped. More? I whispered. He recorded me too? Detective Weaver nodded slowly. Without your knowledge. A cold wave moved through me as he tapped another audio file. Dorian's voice filled the air again. Cold, calculating, quiet. She won't question anything, he whispered on the recording. Serena's too tired. Too emotional. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. My knees weakened. Another clip. No. She doesn't know about the transfers. She won't figure it out. My breath shook. Transfers? Detective, I whispered. What is this? What was he doing? He leaned in. This wasn't a custody fight, he said. It was a coordinated trap, emotional and financial. I covered my mouth, nausea rising. There's more, Detective Weaver said quietly. Listen. He tapped another recording. Dorian's voice dropped to a dangerous murmur. Once the accounts are cleared and custody is settled, I'm done. She'll be too busy proving she's not crazy to notice anything else. My pulse pounded painfully. What accounts? I whispered. What transfers? What was he planning? Detective Weaver exhaled slowly. That's what we're trying to determine. But there's someone else mentioned in these recordings. I looked up sharply. Someone else. He nodded, eyes steady. A man named Langston. My heart flipped, an instinctive, primal warning pulsing through me. Detective Weaver watched my reaction. Does that name mean anything to you? No, I whispered. I've never heard it. He tapped the tablet once more. Whoever Langston is, your husband trusted him. And based on what I'm hearing, whatever they were doing together didn't end in that courtroom. Fear crawled up my spine. What does that mean for us? It means, Detective Weaver said quietly, that you and your daughter may be connected to something much larger than a custody scheme. He closed the tablet gently. And we need to find out what Langston wanted before he decides to come looking for you. By the time Detective Weaver stepped out of my kitchen, I finally understood something terrifying. The courtroom wasn't the end of Dorian's plan. It was the beginning of someone else's. He had combed through the recordings like a man dismantling a trap, piece by piece, each file revealing another lie I never realized I'd been living beside. He tried to stay neutral, but a crease flickered between his brows every time a new detail surfaced. Subtle signals, but enough to let me know this was worse than I imagined. When he finally set the tablet down, the silence felt heavy, almost pressurized. Mrs. Caldwell, he began quietly, I need you to brace yourself. My chest tightened. For what? He drew in a slow breath. Your husband wasn't preparing for a custody win, he said. He was preparing to disappear. Disappear. My fingers slipped along the table's edge. With Mila? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. My knees nearly gave out. The room tilted. Weaver continued gently. There's more. He wasn't doing this alone. Several recordings reference another person, someone handling the financial side. Someone Dorian trusted. A cold thread slid up my spine. Who? He placed my phone on the table. Again, I didn't remember giving it to him, and turned the screen toward me. There were 3 blocked calls this morning, he said. 1 left a voicemail. My stomach dropped. He pressed play. A distorted male voice rolled through the kitchen. Controlled, calm, cold. Dorian didn't finish the job. We need to talk. And I don't want excuses. The hairs on my arms rose. That voice, Weaver said softly, belongs to a man Dorian mentioned multiple times. Langston. The name sent a primal jolt through my body. I don't know anyone named Langston. My voice barely formed. That's what concerns me, Weaver said. He clearly knows you, or thinks you can give him whatever Dorian promised. I don't have anything, I whispered. I didn't even know about any accounts, any transfers, any plan. He leaned forward. We believe Dorian opened several accounts under both your names. Accounts he drained over the last months. My breath stuttered.
Why?
Why involve Mila? Why do any of this? Weaver's voice dropped. Because in schemes like this, a child becomes leverage. My vision blurred. He lied to you, Serena, he said, from start to finish. I swallowed hard, shaking. What do I do? I've already requested patrol cars near your home, and you need to stay alert. If anything feels wrong, anything, you call me. Immediately. I nodded, unable to speak. Weaver paused at the door, voice softer than before. I have kids too, he said quietly. And I hate when children end up tangled in an adult's mess. My throat tightened. And Serena, he added. Langston, he doesn't sound like someone who gives second warnings. Be careful. Then he left. For a long moment, I stood in the doorway staring into the quiet street, pulse thudding painfully in my ears. Behind me, a tiny voice said, Mommy? Mila stood at the bottom of the stairs, rubbing her eyes. I turned quickly. Hey, baby, you okay? Was that man helping us? Yes, I said, forcing calm into my voice. He's helping. She stepped closer, eyes wide and frightened. Is Daddy coming back? The air punched out of me. No, I said softly, kneeling. Not like before. And you're safe now. I promise. She wrapped her arms around my neck. I held her until her little heartbeat steadied against mine. I don't want anyone to take me, she whispered. No one will, I said. Not ever again. Even as a cold pressure coiled deeper in my chest. Later, after cartoons and warm milk and a blanket wrapped around her small shoulders, Mila fell asleep beside me on the couch. I didn't move her. The house felt too exposed, and I didn't want her more than a foot away. Outside, night deepened. Shadows shifted across the walls. Every creak of the house felt deliberate. Then headlights swept across the blinds. A car slowed outside. Not passing.
Not parking. Studying.
I froze. The engine idled softly. Seconds stretched tight. My muscles tensed so hard my jaw ached. Then, finally, the car crept forward and disappeared down the street. But the dread it left behind stayed lodged in my ribs. I tucked Mila into bed around 9. She stirred once, whispered, "Mommy," and drifted back to sleep. Downstairs, I didn't turn on more than a single lamp. The air felt too thin. Every sound felt amplified. My heartbeat too loud in my ears. At 9:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. My breathing hitched. The lamp beside me hummed faintly, the only steady sound in the room. The phone buzzed again. I stared at it, pulse racing. Then a text flashed across the screen. "Pick up on the next call." No more waiting. A tremor shook through me. Before I could think, the phone rang again. Same number. I answered. For a moment, only silence. Then a voice, low, steady, almost polite, slid across the line. "You're slower than he said you'd be." My blood ran cold. "Who is this?" "You'll give Dorian a message," the voice said calmly. "I don't appreciate unfinished business." I don't know what you want." He chuckled softly, a sound with no warmth at all. "He said you'd say that." Every muscle in my body tightened. My voice came out barely audible.
"Please."
"What do you want from me?" "I want what he owed," the man said.
"Money."
"Access." "Information." "Information." The word hit sharp and hard. And now the voice continued. "Your husband is unavailable." "Unavailable." I swallowed hard. "I don't have anything. I swear I don't." He cut me off, tone sharpening, colder now. "You have 48 hours. My breath hitched violently. 48 hours for what? To return what he stole.
A pause.
"And after 48 hours, we come to collect. And we don't miss." My fingers went numb around the phone. "Please," my voice cracked, a raw whisper. "Don't come near my daughter. I'm begging you." The line disconnected. No click. No goodbye. Just a dead, suffocating silence. I sat frozen, the phone still pressed against my ear, unable to move or breathe or think. Then instinct snapped awake inside me. I shot up from the couch and ran upstairs. My hands shook as I pushed open Mila's bedroom door. She slept peacefully, her small face tucked into her pillow, her stuffed bear under her arm. I knelt beside her bed, stroking her cheek with trembling fingers. "I won't let anything happen to you," I whispered. "I won't." But even as I said it, I knew the truth. Someone out there was counting down hours. Someone who believed I had something worth killing for. Someone who didn't miss. And the next 48 hours would decide whether we stayed safe or vanished. I didn't sleep. Not really. I lay in the dark, every sense alert, waiting for a sound that might mean the countdown had ended badly. 48 hours had been carved into my skin like a promise I couldn't shake. Every creak, every shadow, sounded like a footstep coming for us. Mila slept in the next room, and I stayed awake in the hall with the lamp low, watching the door like it was a fragile promise. At first light, a knock came, sharp, deliberate. I nearly dropped the lamp as I opened the door. Detective Weaver stood there, mist on his coat, urgency written in the lines around his eyes. Relief hit me hard, like warm air after a long cold. He moved past me without fuss, his steps quick and sure. Mila trailed behind, hair wild from sleep, clutching her bear. "We need to see the tablet," Weaver said without preamble. "And I need to talk to you both." He set a thick folder on the kitchen table and opened it. Screenshots, bank transfers, email headers spilled across the pages like the anatomy of a lie. "Langston isn't some fringe thug," Weaver said. He runs a quiet network, offshore accounts, shell companies, identity laundering. Dorian wasn't just a partner. He was a small cog in something much bigger. My throat closed. Why would he use Mila? Use me? Weaver's eyes were flat. Protection. Insurance. Dorian made his daughter a ticket, collateral. And when Langston wants something, he expects delivery. He tapped a still from recording, Dorian talking into his phone, face pale with strain. He told Langston he'd deliver access codes to accounts, to transfers. Langston thought you had them after custody was settled. That's why he called you. Dorian promised him something. When I heard the word codes, I felt a cold, final object in my gut. My name flashed in lights inside my skull, as if labeled on some ledger I never saw. He promised you what? I asked, voice small. Weaver read from a thread on the printout. Langston. Deadline approaching. Deliver the access codes. Dorian. I need more time. Langston. Your time is not your own. I felt the floor tilt. He thinks you have access, Weaver said quietly. Whether you do or not, he believes it. That's why he's dangerous. Dorian's part in it was worse than I'd imagined. Weaver placed another file in front of me. Bank records, signatures, the faint ghost of my name signed where I'd never signed anything. He forged your name, Weaver said simply. He used you as cover. The room blurred. I could not wrap the betrayal around my ribs. Not only the husband I'd married, the father of my child, but a man who had turned my life into currency. 2 hours later, we stood in the hospital corridor. Dorian's wrist was in a cast, a bruise blooming dark under his temple. He'd tried to run from officers. They'd apprehended him, and now he lay pale and wired. He saw me come in, and something like recognition, not repentance, flickered across his face. You think you're safe? He snarled, voice thin. You think this ends here? Where's Langston? I demanded. He laughed, a noise stripped of bravado. Fear carved deep into it. He doesn't tell me where he operates. He tells me where to go. He leaned forward, voice dropping.
You don't understand.
He told me what happens to people who disappoint him. Weaver stepped between us. Where's the warehouse? Where's Langston? Pier 8, Dorian whispered. Storage unit. He said he'd handle the rest. Weaver's radio crackled. He listened, then met my eyes with steel. He's pinging from the docks. Burners. He's active. The world narrowed to a single track of motion. They moved like a blade. Officers arranged a perimeter at Pier 8, lights slicing the fog over the water. We stood at the edge of the lot. Weaver at the lead, his voice clipped, practiced. You stay behind me, he said. No sudden moves. The warehouse smelled of salt and rust and old wood. Shadows pooled in its corners like ink. We pushed the heavy doors, and they hollered into the dark. Langston, come out where we can see you. Footsteps answered. Not hurried, not panicked, a calm, almost theatrical, like a man who expected his moment. A tall figure appeared, long coat, hands open, expression unreadable. He stepped into the light as though walking onto a stage. Langston's voice was soft, precise, like someone reading a final line. You're late, he said. I waited. Patience is a commendable trait, detective. But I grow tired. Weaver kept his grip tight on his weapon. You're under arrest, he called. Drop whatever you have and come out. Langston tilted his head, eyes moving to me like a surveyor. Dorian said you had access to everything he owed me. If that's true, you'll do. The sentence landed like a scalpel. He believed my name sat on the ledger of stolen things. He squared his shoulders as if preparing to accept betrayal. Weaver stepped forward. Langston, put your hands where we can see them. Langston smiled, a slight, disarming smile. We don't need to make a scene. Give me what's mine and leave. He moved with unnatural calm, but there was a coiled readiness in his step, like a trap springing. Before anyone could decide, Langston moved. Too fast. An officer shouted. Weaver Dove. Orders cracked like thunder. A shot rang, sharp and clean. Shouts, the thrum of bodies. Someone hit the concrete with a grunt. Langston fell, then stilled. The warehouse was suddenly all noise and motion, and then it was utterly quiet. Weaver pulled me behind a crate, breathing hard, eyes blazing. "It's over," he said. He came out from cover and stood over Langston as uniformed officers cuffed him, found a small recorder, burner phones, and encrypted drives stacked like a nest of vipers. It was over, and the relief hit me in a slow, shaking wave. Langston looked up at me, blood seeping from his temple, and his lips curled. "You were not the plan," he said, breath ragged. "But some plans adjust." They took him away. They untangled the web the men had spun. The evidence in the drives matched everything: transfers, shell companies, the forged signatures. Elise's involvement was small at first, then larger. She had taken payments, adjusted reports, and then panicked when it became murder by implication. She confessed. Her license was suspended pending further action. Dorian, in a cell but lucid enough to speak, looked at me with something like defeat. "I thought I could control it," he said. "I thought I could fix everything. He was going to pay me out. I panicked. I lied." He closed his eyes, and the mask slipped away. "I've seen what he does." Weeks later, in a small, quiet office, Weaver handed me a stack of documents with signatures and a letterhead I'd never expected to read. Official court rulings returned in my favor, Langston's network dismantled, Dorian's charges filed. The judge's handwriting on one page read, "Custody restored to Mrs. Serena Caldwell. Protective orders in place. Criminal investigation ongoing." Mila burst in like light, a tornado of curls and laughter and 1,000 reasons to believe in tomorrow. She barreled into my arms, breathless, sticky with grape juice, triumphant. I held her so tight, I felt the small, fierce heartbeat of the world I would protect. On the desk nearby, Mila's cracked tablet sat tilted against a coffee mug, its screen still spidered with cracks, still carrying the patchwork evidence of our fight. The little device that saved us, proof that even broken things can reveal the truth. Weaver watched us with a soft expression. "You did what you had to do," he said. "You kept her safe." "No," I corrected, my voice thick with a kind of exhausted joy.
She did.
"She saved us." Outside, the sun finally climbed above the skyline, and I let the warmth hit my face like permission to breathe. There were court dates ahead, apologies to untangle, reputations to repair, a life to rebuild from the pieces. But we were together. That was everything. If there's a moral to this, it's not neat or tidy. It's this: courage takes many forms. Sometimes it's a child pressing play on a cracked tablet. Sometimes it's a detective who refuses to stop listening. Sometimes it's the small, stubborn refusal to let someone else write your story for you. If this story moved you, consider liking and subscribing. It helps bring more real-life, cinematic stories like this to people who need them. And if you've been through something similar, please share your thoughts below. You're not alone.